Yo, yo, yo. Hello, everybody. We are back again, Brown and Orange Weekly with you. As always, I am your co host, Clarence Wilson. And with me, as always, is the man, that dude, my guy, Dean Samples. Dean was shaking.
How you doing, man? We are joined with a special guest today, Mr. Jack
Yes.
Duffy. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Anytime someone slides into the DMs and it's like, "Hey, do you want to chat Browns?" I'm always like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Love it. Love it.
I'm
Um,
excited for this.
we are, yes, we have special guest on. One of the things my mother always told me is that you know what, you can know a little bit about something, but if you don't know enough to really educate others, you find somebody who does. So that's why we got Jack on.
I'm in exactly the same ballpark. Hey, I know about 90% of the, I don't even say that, about 75% of the stuff going on with Cap. Some of it, hey, who knows what's happening? There was stuff with like the way they've done Clowney's deal this year. I've never seen or never knew it could be done that way. So it's one that you need to get to about 25%, I would say, and then you get a gist of the Cap. And then Andrew Berry, the Saints, the Eagles, they're always doing some random crazy stuff, and you just have to learn as you go. But no, always happy to come on chat.
Beautiful, beautiful. Jack is the salary cap expert for the Orange and Brown Report. He is, when I'm looking for cap information and seeing how things work, he's a Twitter account I go to. So make sure you follow him on Twitter. We'll have him shout out his link before he gets out of here. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it.
The Browns are
Um,
hurting cap space this year, heading into next season.
yes, I've seen different reports. All of them are around. They are about negative 14 million in the cap. But if you look at Jack's pinned tweet, he has the NFL cap currently at 225 million. He has, around the same number that I've seen, around negative $14 million. That includes the rollover. But he has some very interesting ways to for the Browns to get some money. Um, he has a JJ3 June 1st cut, which I'm all in favor for at this point, which would give us 9.75 million. And then a restructure of Watson's contract, which I'm interested to hear about this, how they would do this, Jack, which would give them another 35, almost 36 million. And then a couple of other items. And he has the Browns freeing up giving us basically about $27,800,000. Jack, how did you kind of come to these numbers and give us some more on the cap, man?
Yeah, so no, if anyone ever wants to go, because the off season is crazy and things happen all the time, my pin tweet is where I just leave it as like you can jump in there and see what's happening. So as players get signed, it takes about 2-3 days for the actual contracts to come out because you'll get a first number, but then I'll always update that pin tweet. So great place to always go. But the restructuring with Watson's deal is the first thing they're going to get done, but they will wait a little bit because they're going to wait for the Ravens to tag Lamar Jackson. Because whenever the Browns restructure the deal, it will lower the top 5 salaries of the quarterback, which is what the franchise tag's based off. So by waiting a little bit extra, it'll cost the Ravens roughly an extra 2 million. So anytime you can dig one into the Ravens, they're going to do that. So it won't be the first thing that gets done right at the start of the offseason. I don't think they'll wait for Lamar to be tagged and then they'll be like, right, now the Ravens have had to pay him an extra couple of million. Now we'll restructure. But a restructure, people think it's a pay cut or something else. And all it is taking his base salary and paying it as a signing bonus. So the player gets the same money. The player just gets it up front rather than weekly through the season. And the Browns are then able to, paying exactly the same money, they just split the bill over 5 years. So it's like buying on a credit card. Getting a credit card doesn't suddenly make you rich overnight. It allows you to spend more money in this year, but then you pay it back in the future. There's no sort of like penalties and interest and anything like that, but it just splits it over. So Watson's the one that 99.99% sure they are definitely going to do because nothing in the NFL is fully guaranteed. But after that, I think they'll end up doing some more deals. I've written an article on where I think the other deals get done, but where I'm not 100% sure and that sort of really, really confident. I'll leave that in the article, and the tweet's just like, this is the stuff I really think is going to happen. So some other guys I expect to get done is Garrett, that frees up about 13 million. Teller frees up 9 million. Batonio frees up 8 million. So they suddenly, just for those 4 deals, that's 65 million, 66 million created in cap space. So they won't spend all of that, but they'd rather sit there with some healthy money. And then, hey, if a deal comes up where you're like, actually, we want to go sign this guy, you'll do it. And they'll backload deals as well. So it won't be, if they went out and spent 10 million, say 14 million on Jesse Bates, it's not going to be 14 million in year one. It will probably be about 5 million on the cap. So they'll balance it out. But at the same time, you can't then just blow it all, backload the deals. And then you're sat here next year going, hey, we're in minus 50, minus 60 million. How do we get out of this hole? So it's a balancing act, but hey, you got to trust AB with this stuff.
I mean, you got to. Do you see any surprise cuts? There's a Mary Kay Cabot out here has made some rumblings that Mari Cooper could potentially be a surprise cut or before June 1st. I really hope that's not true, especially since he's been the most productive wide receiver this past season.
Yeah. So Amari Cooper's never getting cut. It was one that last offseason, it was very much in play for this year of going, if he's not playing great, let's say he got 700 yards and he's okay, but he's not elite. He might have been our best wide receiver. There was a chance that after this season, they could have gone, hey, he's good, he's not great, we could move on. But he's gone and delivered at a great level. He's not in that top 10, but he's just outside of that. And that's over the moon with that level of production. So there's no way he's going to get cut. But it was certainly one, if you didn't have a great 2022, they could have looked at that as an option. But hey, he's definitely coming back. And I probably expect Donovan Peoples-Jones to get paid this offseason. That will probably land somewhere 10 to 12.5 mil. Just because, hey, the wide receiver market is crazy. Everyone needs 3 wide receivers. We've got 2. We still need 1 more. So I expect that movement there. Jakeem Grant is someone I could see getting cut, but that would probably come nearer the end of training camp, just because at 3 million a year, they can probably invest that better. Another couple of guys, Harrison Bryant and Jordan Elliott potentially, just because there's a feature in the NFL called the proven performance escalator. And what that means, if a player plays a certain percentage of snaps over their first 3 years, they get a pay rise on their 4th rookie year. So each of those guys went from about 1 million in 2023 to suddenly they're like 2.7, 2.8 million. And then you're at that point where you're going, actually, we can get rid of them and bring someone else in better. Because if you're not going to extend them, hey, would I have Jordan Elliott on 2.8 million, or hey, Taven Bryant maybe at 3.5 million? Taven Bryant's a better player. Whether it's a Jordan Akins, if he's only potentially going to get, say, 3.5, would I rather just pay a bit extra and get Jordan Akins versus Harrison Bryant? You've got to say yes to those moves.
You see the Browns keeping Taven Bryant?
I think it should be a no-brainer. I think he had a really nice year. It started off a little slow, but I think lots of people put the frustration of Jordan Elliott on the entire defensive tackle room. The defensive tackle room behind Taven Bryant wasn't good. But if he'd have had, say, Matt Ioannidis next to him, I think people would feel a lot better about that room. So he did an okay job. Yeah, he's not going to be a top half, but he is average. And if I can pay 3 million to us, well, 4 million this year, but I think you can bring that number down a little bit next year. If I can pay 3-4 million to a guy and get average, I'm paying that for a starter, because that's not a bad price tag. It's not like you're suddenly paying crazy money and then you're like, oh, did we get it? And Anthony Walker's sort of player I'd love to bring back. You're paying 4 million and you're getting above average. He's not going to be a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro linebacker, but he's just good enough. And that's all you need on defense.
Yeah, we need that desperately.
Absolutely.
Especially at the linebacker position. We need help there bad. I mean, unfortunately, we were plagued with injuries throughout the season again, but yeah, we need some depth in that position. So I think that would be a positive move as well.
Yeah, we've been talking about the linebacker and the DT pretty much since about game 4 or 5 of the season, when the Browns started getting gashed left and right.
That run defense is brutal, man.
Yeah, it was one of those things that you look at the roster and you're like, yeah, they look weak, but Well, they just don't look like they have a lot of depth and proven talent those spots. But you kind of figured that with everything around them, we would be okay. And I think Atlanta came out and showed that wasn't going to be the case early. And other teams started following suit. Um,
I'm still upset about the Jets. I'm still upset about the Jets. I'll probably never get over that game.
that was
I think part of the linebacker stuff is just unlucky. If you lose your top 5 players at any position, we lost like our top 4 on the depth chart at centre and linebacker this year. If that happens at any position, it's going to suck. And it's going to suck pretty bad because it's not like you can suddenly just get, hey, they got like Reggie Ragland and he looks good. They're just getting these guys out of absolute nowhere. And hey, if there's one position coach that I would love to keep on the defensive side, it's definitely Tarver. I think he's done a good job with that linebacker room overall. And they've invested literally nothing. And that's, to be fair, I don't think Schwartz is going to come in demanding much because you flip to the Eagles, they never really invested anything as a team either. So I think that the linebacker's been all right. If you just had a little bit more money in the defensive tackle, and the one move I was bouncing around pre-2022 season was I was in favour of just getting rid of Kareem Hunt. Whether you trade him, whether you do anything, that would have freed up $6.25 million. And my view is we shouldn't be paying for backups, pay for the starters. And if we would have, say there's no Winfrey, they don't draft Winfrey because they've already made a move. If you had Matt Ioannidis there starting on the team and you didn't have a backup running back, I don't think anyone would have noticed that, hey, just play more Nick Chubb, don't have a backup, and whether it's Ernest Johnson, Ford, whoever, I don't really mind. But having a starting defensive tackle like Matt Ioannidis, he was only 5.9 million this offseason. That would have made a world of difference to that defense.
That's a really good point. I think if we were to use Kareem Hunt differently, than we would hope they would have used him, my mind would have changed a little bit. But I agree with you 100%. Since we barely even use him as it is, if we would have got rid of him earlier, I think that would have been really beneficial for us. I mean, I hate to see him go. I love the guy. Dude can be a top back anywhere he goes. But it's unfortunate things didn't work out.
So do you kind of think that, I guess, what do you think the logic behind keeping Kareem was, Jack? Like we saw them use, multiple draft picks the last 2 seasons on running backs, even though, they were later on, plus they still had D'Ernest. So I think the writing was kind of on the wall for them to be able to move on from Kareem, but for some reason they didn't. What do you think the logic behind that was?
I think partly they were probably just thinking, hey, what happens to Nick Chubb? Because running backs are a position where injuries are common, and they just thought, hey, we need another guy. Personally, I would have just freed up that money, and I was happy with D'Ernest. I was happy with Ford, probably not, but you can just get somebody. There's enough good running backs that are just sat on practice squads or getting cut through the season that you can just throw someone in there. And you've got such a good offensive line. Stefanski has a great scheme for running backs that I'm sure it'd have been fine. I'd have no question doubt. I don't know if they just thought, hey, no Watson, do we risk it? But I would have gone and done it. The analytically savvy move would be just clear the money out of the backup running back and give it to a defensive tackle that's going to play, say, 60% of snaps. It's, for me, any money invested in backups doesn't make sense, with the exception of sort of a third defensive tackle, a third edge. Pay those guys sort of 2.5, 3 million because you need 3 or 4 guys deeper on the defensive line because you can't just rely on the first 4. And the Eagles have shown it in the past. Get depth, the Ravens as well. You need to just keep rolling these guys out because if you get a long drive, you can't have Myles Garrett on the side gassed and you're sending in like Thomas or Wright in there. You've got to have at least 3 starting quality edges, and I'd say at least 3 starting quality defensive tackles.
Do you got a free agent defensive tackle that you, in a perfect world, you would love to see come be a Brown?
Yeah. So the 2 that stand out most for me at the moment is Matt Ioannidis is again a free agent. I would happily make that move. Sheldon Rankins is one that I keep an eye on. Wormley got injured for the Steelers at the end of the season, I believe. So I don't know what his health status is, but I don't want to spend loads. I think you sort of 5-6 million on a starter, put sort of 3.5 million into Taven Bryant. I'm happy with that because I need to make sure I've got 6 guys that I'm happy out there playing over a third of the snaps all the way along that D line. I can't be doing what we did last year of you've got Clowney, Taven Bryant, Myles Garrett, and nothing. You've got to be deep. The idea that you can just rely on, hey, Madden, turn off snaps, turn off injuries, and let's just stick these guys out there for 100% of snaps. It doesn't work. If you're a linebacker, you're a DB, you can get near to 100% of snaps. But if you're on that D line, Myles Garrett shouldn't be out there for more than 75% of snaps because the more snaps he plays, the more he's going to be exhausted. He's not going to be as efficient. So it's a balancing game. So give me more depth and Okoronkwo on the edge. Just go out and sign that guy, like $5 million a year off the Texans. I think he's going to be a beast.
Okay.
That's a good point. Well, we were talking last week about defensive tackles. I mean, obviously, there's no possible way. I don't think we can get like a guy like Hargrave from Philly, and then Payne from Washington. I mean, obviously, if it was possible, that'd be great to have those guys in there. But I would be happy with just some depth. There's some decent guys on that list that we can bring in for cheap, and just to add depth into that defensive line. I think that'd be great.
I think the issue is if you go out and make a splash like Daron Payne or Hargraves, that suddenly, well, what's the rest of the room look like? Because you spend your entire budget on Myles Garrett and Daron Payne. Everyone else is going to be min contracts, or they're going to be rookies. And then, well, you've got an edge room that is like Myles Garrett, Chase Winovich, Alex Wright, Thomas, and a draft pick. Then you've got a defensive tackle room that is Daron Payne, Jordan Elliott, Tommy Togiai, he probably got cut, but say Winfrey and a draft pick. I don't think you're that much better than you are this season because you're putting all the pressure on those Myles Garrett and Daron Payne. And hey, what's going to happen on the site 25% of snaps when they're on the sidelines and you're just getting gashed because you've got no depth. So I'd much rather go and spread that money around and go, hey, we've got Taven Bryan, we've got Matt Ioannidis, we maybe bring in somebody else, or you keep Winfrey as your number 3 and draft someone, and then edge. I want to be 3 deep. I would love to have sort of Myles Garrett, Okoronkwo, Melvin Ingram, Alex Wright. Alex Wright as your 4th edge. You're in a nice spot then, and you can roll lines and lines off, and you're going to give the opposition quarterback heart attacks. So go out and cause carnage, and it's that depth versus upfront quality debate. If you're wide receivers, hey, those dudes can play 90% plus. Get the stars. For the defense, just give me that overall quality and depth.
I love it.
Absolutely. Yes. I guess that was a question that I was really going to ask you, is like, if let's say they end up freeing up, like you said, anywhere from 30 to $60 million. You feel that's best spent, because we kind of feel that's best spent on the defensive line / linebackers, wherever it can be, and then use the draft to maybe focus on wide receiver and other positions that aren't very deep. Is that kind of how you see them working this offseason?
Yeah, so I think you're going to see one big move, which will be to extend Donovan Peoples-Jones, but that will probably come June, July time, just because the order of off-season is usually extensions get dealt with around then. So I expect them to open the checkbook, tie him down. And that then moves the Browns to 8 players getting 10 million plus a year on the offensive side of the ball, which is nuts. If we talk about the teams that are left in the playoffs, it's like 3 or 4. So there is an insane amount of money in that offense. And that's why you just can't go out. You can't have everyone on 10 million plus, because else you've got nothing then on the defensive side of the ball and anywhere else. So they're really pushing the extremes of how far it can go. So I think the draft is where you go on the offensive side of the ball. You need to find a left tackle that's a long-term answer. You need to find another wide receiver because, hey, Amari Cooper's got 2 years left. You need 3 wide receivers. I think you can realistically draft one there. And the draft's about the next sort of 8 years where you can bring guys in and they'll develop and they'll get a second contract. Free agency is all about filling needs. What do we need for 2023? And hey, it's defense. So suddenly you go out and you sign 2 defensive tackles, you sign at least 1 edge, you sign or re-sign, whether it's Anthony Walker, you bring in, say, 2 free agent linebackers. And I could see them spending on a free safety. So I don't think you're going to see many guys that are 10 million plus. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones would be the one deal there. And I could potentially see a free safety. but I don't think you're going to see the big ticket items. And to be fair, most big ticket free agents, they cut within 2 years, not just for the Browns, for every team, because they're generally a bad investment. Firstly, for someone to be a free agent, the team that had them didn't want to keep them.
Yep.
And then they get overpaid because 4 or 5 teams are chasing them, so the prices are too much. So it's generally best to steer away from free agency for big ticket items. But you get a lot of guys that, hey, someone that was buried on a depth chart somewhere else, and they're then moving on because, hey, they had sort of several other good pass rushers and they decided not to keep this guy. Or you get someone that they're a veteran, the team has drafted someone younger and they're going to move on. So that's where you want to go. So I think getting some guys at sort of 3 to 6 million and filling out the depth is where you go. But if you're going to look at a splash, free safety, Jesse Bates off the Bengals is certainly one to keep an eye on. Linking into Schwartz, a guy that I'd say look at is Marcus Eaps. I think it's Eaps, EPPS, from the Eagles. Is certainly one there. And another couple of guys I think linked to Schwartz, but cheaper additions. Walker, the edge, it's DeMarcus Walker. I'm not sure on the first name, but with the Titans, I think he could be really nice as that third edge. It's not going to cost much. And then looking at safety, there's a couple of safeties for the Titans that are on the minimum. Kalu, Kalu, is one I could certainly see replacing Ronnie Harrison. So I think it's going to be the cheap little moves you're going to see this season, not the big splashes. We had Amari Cooper, we had Watson. I think it's going to be more that. Let's fill in the middle tier of the roster and really go out and compete, because free agency is going to elevate this defense. And if there's one thing you can change in a single offseason, it's defense. Yes. Rebuilding offense is really, really tough, but so many success stories of, hey, this was a bottom 5 defense, and we just need to be average. Give me a top 5 offense, a top 8 offense, and a top 16 defense. Just sat on that 16th level, you can go win a Super Bowl easy.
Oh yeah, I think that Jim Schwartz hire is a great move. He can probably persuade some of these guys, just knowing his experience and how long he's been in the league, to probably come here for a cheaper contract. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these guys, like you said, if you can just get a few guys that probably been buried in the depth chart, never really got an opportunity to come out there, they need just an opportunity to prove themselves. I think that's the way to go. I agree with you 110%.
Yeah, get some cheap 1-year prove-it deals, let them have a great season, elevate their play, and then you get comp picks when they go off and they sign a bigger deal somewhere else. So you just want that elevator of bring guys in, and you're not committing to them on 1-year deals outside of a couple on there. If you pay a load of money to a free safety and maybe to Okoronkwo, you sign them up for a few years, but everyone else, just give them 1-year deals, let them come in and prove it, and good luck to them. Either they're really good and you get a comp pick, or they're really bad and you're happy you didn't tie into more than 1 year.
How would you handle Ethan Pocic? He filled in at the injured safety position. I mean, center position. He did amazing this year, considering the circumstances. I would love to see him back. But
I think you've got to let him go. Just because there is so much money invested. At the minute Conklin came back, I was like, there is just no way they can realistically do Pocic.
That's true.
It's like, what, I think he's $5.5, $6 million a year. And this is for a guy that a year ago, teams were like, we don't even see him as an NFL starter. Mm-hmm. That's crazy how that's moved. But I think you're looking at a perfect scenario. You've got a potential Hall of Fame left guard in Joel Bitonio. You've got an all-pro right guard in Wyatt Teller. He has his downs in the second half of the season, but he's definitely a great player. You've got potentially the best O-line coach in the NFL. You're in a good position there. And I think Nick Harris, he's had one start at center. It was Christmas Day. I was out there at Packers, and he had a really good game that day. He was beating Pocic out for the starting job before he went down injured. Bring in some veteran, whoever the 33rd center in the league, whoever's out there in free agency and no one offers them a starting job, I promise you their agent's going to be calling one team and going, I want to come here. And that's going to be Cleveland, because they're going to see what happened to Pocic and they're going to be like, do that for me and then come here. So it's one, they'll come in, battle Nick Harris for that starting job. And you've got Dawson Deaton. There's an option there as well. Obviously went down in camp. But I think you've got some nice competition, but I just can't see how you can fork out $5.5 million when it's crazy money. I'll write it up once the roster's set, and the Browns' offense in terms of starter money, no one else in the league is going to come close.
You've
Yeah, they've
persuaded
got
me and changed
a
my
lot of
mind
money.
on him. So I agree. I think now that you put it that way, I think the best move is probably to let him go.
Yeah, they've got a lot of money invested in
Yeah.
that offense and
I
offensive
didn't know he's
line.
getting that much money. So thanks for opening my eyes on that one.
It's one that you almost hate the price of, like, a guy that is, hey, he's on 1 million and a bit last year, amazing, and then suddenly it's like, well, it's 5.5, 6 million. It's like, well, I'm not so keen on it anymore, and it's always where that sits. And people are like, oh, you didn't like this guy? I was like, yeah, I didn't like it when you told me he was going to cost 10 million. If you can get him for as a steal for 2 million, well, suddenly, yeah, I love that, and it's almost your sliding scale of like, yeah, this is the awkward part, and as long as it's on the cheaper end, and there'll be guys that 1 year prove it deals, they're going to want to come to Cleveland if they're on the O line. Because if you're not going to start, you want to work under Bill Callahan. You come to a team with a great reputation for player development, and why not let them come and join the team?
Yeah.
Yeah. We know next season is going to depend a lot on, obviously, the progression of Watson, and we all expect him to look much, much better than he did through the 6 games last year. But as far as filling the holes that in the rest of the roster, do you think that they can do this in one offseason? I'm kind of almost in that feeling that it's going to take this offseason and maybe one more offseason to get this team kind of where they need to be at, especially, with you talking about 1 year deals and things of that nature. Do you think that they can fill enough holes to be competitive and play in a Super Bowl this year, or maybe not even playing a Super Bowl, but make an absolute decent playoff run, win a game or two?
Yeah, no, I think they're in a really good position to be a 10 plus win team. And that's the goal. At the end of the day, get to the playoffs, ideally win the division. And then once you get to the playoffs, if you end up with the first game against the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, you might easily lose. Because if one of those teams turn up and really deliver, if Patrick Mahomes is dealing, you're probably going to lose the game. And that's just the way it is. But you want to get there, and you can say, hey, we're a 10-win team. We can keep delivering this level. And you've seen it from Kevin Stefanski. He had Baker's best season. He elevated Kirk Cousins to a phenomenal season in his 1 year as an OC there. Jacoby Brissett looked great. With this same roster, Jacoby Brissett looked really, really good. And it's just going to take time for Watson to get to that level. And I think he'll be more than ready going into next season. Will he be sort of a top 3 quarterback? I don't know. But as long as he's top 8, that is more than enough. That's all you need, because there's enough pieces that it's going to continue performing at a high level. So I'm not too worried about chasing hey, is he going to be Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, that like cream of the crop guys? Who knows? But as long as he's sat there and we're there going, hey, he's top 8, then that's great. That's all you actually need. And then, yeah, it comes to the playoffs. It comes to luck. Who's on fire, which game, and then the random bounce of a ball from an interception of suddenly swings an entire game because it hit someone in a face mask and hit someone's heel, and then someone else catched it. You've just got to roll with it and laugh sometimes because it goes in your favor, and then cry because it doesn't. So this team is ready to roll. The offense is going to be, I think, in terms of players, very similar to what we saw last season. I think they'll overhaul a lot of the depth behind the starters, but I expect the core of the team to look very similar on that side. And hey, if the defense was balling, like we saw in the second half of 2021 last year, Jacoby Brissett was taking this team to the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how good the team is. And hey, the bad days of the Browns we've seen, we're all incredibly disappointed with what happened this season. And we weren't far off the playoffs with so much stuff going wrong.
Yeah.
Expectations are up.
Many games by a few points, like less than 5 points. Like, we were there. We were in these games. It's just
couldn't finish.
Yeah.
And that's why you got to get a quarterback like Watson. Watson's there to get that last few wins over the line. And I think he'll be more than able to do it.
Agreed.
Jack, we know you got to get out of here shortly. I got one quick question. Dean, I don't know if you got another one. I actually got 2. First question. What is the final number you think that they're going to be able to kind of free up in cap room? Like just throughout, through your studies and everything else, just I'm not going to hold you to it. But what is it kind of like your number that you're looking at, or if they can get to this point, then they can really do some things.
So I don't think they'll look at it quite that way. I think they'll look and to be aggressive and throw money at it. But I think they'll create a load of money. I could see them creating up to like 60. But then they're sat there at the end of going into the season, and they're sat there again with like 30 million that they haven't touched. And there'll be frustration from fans of, I will go below this 30 million, but they'll have that sat there to roll over to next season. But in the same way, that sat there that if a Von Miller style player came up in a trade, as he did a couple of years ago, the Rams had to pay through their teeth because they needed the Broncos to eat the money and take on the contract. So they gave up a second and a third. Whereas if the Browns had a bit of cap space, you could go, actually, we'll just give you the third. You trade him to us because we can afford to have the contract. So it's why you do stuff like that, where you keep a little bit in there because you never know what opportunities are going to come up. And
Good point.
roll with it. And you'd rather have a piggy bank of money that you plan to roll all into next season. But if an emergency comes up that you lose a guy from injury, or an opportunity comes up where you can add someone for the second half of the season down the stretch where you need them, have that and see what you can do. So I think, yeah, I think we'll get to a stage this offseason where we're potentially sat there with like 50 plus million of cap space, but don't expect them to blow it all. And in the same way, they're going to spend more than, say, 50 million because they'll backload these deals, etc.
Okay.
I like it.
Do you got anything else for Jack before we let him go?
No, that's it.
You watch these games.
You've helped me a lot understand it, so I'm glad. I'm glad for your time, man. I'm very thankful for it, and appreciate all the work that you do.
No, always happy to jump on, chat to Browns fans. I'd say stick me a follow on Twitter. It's at Jack Duffin, DUFFIN. The pin tweet's always what's going on with the cap. But I drop all my articles on there. So loads of stuff for the Orange and Brown report, all free to read. So jump on there. I've written, I think, like 40, 50 articles already this offseason looking at trade value of players, what moves we can make to free up. I think I got to like 93 million if you restructure everyone of what you can create for moves. So loads of great content out there. Free agents that link to Schwartz's past. So yeah, I'll keep producing loads of great stuff.
Awesome. Go give them a follow. Go read them articles. I'm sure they're amazing. I'm gonna go get some a read as well. I'm curious about the free agents with linked with Schwartz. I'm gonna go check that out after we get off here.
Absolutely, Jack. Thank you so much for joining us.
Man.
Make sure you guys follow him. Good source for Browns information, because we all know there's a lot of garbage sources out there.
A lot. A lot. All right, Jack. You enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thank you so much.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.
Wow. We want to thank you so much, Jack Duffin, for coming on. Go give him a follow, guys, at Jack Duffin on Twitter. Orange and Brown report. Amazing. I forgot to bring that up, that they used my picture of me holding up the belt, the championship belt. Should have said something to him when he was on there. But thank you so much, Jack. Dude's cleared up a lot of
myths and garbage. Yeah. It's I'm a little bolstered by the things that he was saying about, if they, because we all know restructures happen, but this guy actually, obviously, he studies it. They can clear up 50 million. Like he said, they're going to leave it sitting. But like, as he said, if somebody comes along and they're like, you know what? Somebody becomes available. We got money sitting over here.
Exactly.
Bang. Bang. That was awesome. That was absolutely awesome.
Thanks again, Jack. Go give him a follow. We're going off of what he was talking about. What would you like if you were to restructure Watson's deal? How would you like that to go down? Like you said, like he's still going to get his money. They're just kind of like.
He said they're just rolling into signing bonuses. So, see, with me, like I'm a very frugal guy. Like I don't like to spend a lot of money myself personally.
Yeah.
But if listening to Jack talk, it's like if they can free up 50 million. And he said, they likely won't take a big swing, but for me, I'd be like, man, take a swing. take a swing on obviously a bigger name on the defensive side of the ball, and then like you said, use the draft for offensive side. That's kind of how I would see it. But
He's changed my mind on how to like. Obviously, we were talking about Payne and Hargrave last week. He's changed my perspective on that. There's some decent names down that line that we can get for cheap. They're not like no big hitters, big huge names. You know what I'm saying? Not gonna be Pro Bowlers. Hey, you never know. They could. They probably just never had the opportunity. They've been buried in the on the depth chart. Never really got that much time to see the field. All I need is an opportunity, and we've seen that time and time again throughout the league. Some guys just need a new, fresh start. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't.
yeah,
We can go around and get $3-4 million for a guy to come here on 1 year deal or something like that just to prove themselves. So especially with Jim Schwartz on board now, I'm curious how this team's going to look next season with Schwartz here, especially like with the names of Winfrey. I feel like Schwartz can help him mature and
get the
elevate
best
his
out of you.
yes,
Yeah,
where Woods apparently could not. We've seen some flashes towards the end of the season that Winfrey kind of showed some steps that he's probably maturing and coming into his role here. Man, there's endless opportunities that we can come through this. I'm really curious. I'm gonna have to go back through that list that we went through last week and kind of look at those middle and to the bottom of the list names that we kind of overlooked.
I'm curious to see, as they do these restructures, like he said, how Watson, he said, is probably going to be the first one that gets done. But
Which it should be.
yeah, as we said, we've also got Miles making big money, and we've also got Ward making big money. So, they free up,
Ward's getting like
this
12
bill.
million.
I think so, something like that. But his deal was what 104 over what 5,
I think we're
something like that.
I think we're still taking a hit on Austin Hooper too. From when we had him, I think it's 7.5 million we're hitting this year for him.
My man, lead the league in fact, falls after catch. Um, I I'm excited now. I'm kind of excited now after that conversation that they free up a nice chunk of change that
And,
we can get some things done.
and it's doable.
Mm-hmm. Wow, wow. I love his pin tweet though because his first thing is cut JJ3.
Yes. I mean, after he made that comment where he needed a coach to make him play harder, you know what I'm saying? Basically, like you need a
Right.
coach to like basically yell at him like the money we ain't giving you is not good enough motivation to play good, play hard. Like you gotta go, bro. Like I don't get it.
Man, I don't understand that either. Yeah, I think I now I'm interested. I'm really, really interested to see how they're going to approach this
Me too, man.
because if we're going to get into wide receivers next week, we know we told y'all about we were going to do it this week, but once we had a chance to get on a cap expert, we had to take it. Had to take it. Um, but looking at the wide receivers just briefly, it's thin. It's absolutely thin. What free agent wise? So outside of a trade, that money is best spent on defense, and you know what? You find yourself a solid, third wide receiver in in the draft. The one thing I was kind of shocked that he said that that could be happening is the cut of Jakeem Grant. He was injured all year, but I kind of figured the Browns brought him in to save the return game, and it was nice to see DPJ get his one this year because we haven't seen one in what like
Yeah.
7 years.
But I also feel like if we're gonna pay DPJ to be our number two, I don't want him taking kickoffs.
Exactly. Exactly. I'd like to see what Jakeem Grant has.
Yeah. I don't trust Schwartz back there.
Leave him alone.
No. He's gotta
Schwartz,
go. He's gotta go.
Schwartz, I'm still pulling for you, dog. Like you just get on that jugs machine because you could be our deep threat. Don't let nobody's bad mouth you
You
get to
better
you,
spend
man.
all off season with one of those little machines that shoot out them balls. Would I
No,
like for
100%.
him to pan out? Yes.
Yes, yes.
But you're making it hard, my boy. You are making it hard.
He, well, I mean, he seems like he was the only guy held accountable on the team all year long. Everybody else, would miss a series or miss, the first play before if they had any disciplinary issues. But seems like after the Schwartz fumble, we didn't see him the rest of the damn year.
Yeah.
Don't forget, he ran like 12, 13, 15 yards on that play.
I definitely see us going wide receiver in the draft. So whatever happens, happens. I know I know a lot of us would love the idea of getting D Hopkins here. It's just I don't see it any way possible. I can't even think of like a trade package that would be intriguing enough to Arizona to take that deal. We ain't got no
I agree.
draft picks. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Like we really ain't got shit to offer as far as like first and second rounders. Houston got all those. It's just would I love to see DeAndre Hopkins here? Absolutely. Especially with his history with Watson. I just I don't see it happening at all.
Yeah. I think draft and maybe if they could make a move, maybe a smaller trade and something like that for a team that's has some depth at the wideout spot might be their best play. But yeah, I agree. I don't see them. I don't think we have the assets at this point because if you look at what we have, like most of the guys that we have signed, um, are intended to be core pieces going forward. A lot of them are. Like these aren't guys that we're going to be willing to move. And then if we move one of these guys, that's going to create a hole in that position, to fill a hole at the wideout spot. So then we got to fill the hole from whatever we traded. And as you said, I mean, our draft picks we have draft picks, but it's going to take probably a couple twos.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
at the same time, let's be honest. DeAndre Hopkins isn't as productive as he used to be.
Yeah. You wonder how much that is on Kyler Murray and Call of Duty as opposed to, that being on Hopkins himself.
You leave Call of Duty out of this. You leave that game out of this. That's my bet. I play Call of Duty almost every night before I go, but I do my job just fine the next day. I don't know, man. I mean, he has been injury prone the past few seasons. I hope he can get back to his former self, you know what I'm saying? Being as productive as he used to be. But at the same time, could he be heading down the same path Julio Jones is down? It's just a steep decline.
Sure.
I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like him a lot. I liked Julio Jones too. It was hard to watch him the past few years, Julio. Although he did potentially catch Tom Brady's last touchdown pass.
Yeah, Julio got one.
Yeah.
So
It was his last completion or his touchdown. I don't remember. But no, it was the Julio.
yeah, there's that touchdown, I think. Well, next week, we are going to be jumping into the wideouts, free agency, and maybe we'll check out a few guys that might be available in the second round because outside of the defensive line and linebacker spot, I feel like that might be where the Browns head to next.
Yeah.
Clearly, there could be an issue at left tackle, but you imagine they're going to bring Jed back most likely. So, but we're going to need a backup there. But I think as far as offense goes, like wideout they find that third wideout, Browns could be in business on offense if Watson comes back.
I agree.
That's for next week.
That's for next week. Before we go, though, since we will know by next week's show who will be in the Super Bowl, who you got? Who you got tonight?
It's a great question. So I did a parlay bet, and I took for some reason I bet the Illinois Wisconsin over yesterday in basketball. I don't know why. Shout out to my man Adam for talking me into that. I won. But I yeah, but that is a live bet mid game. But parlay that with money line of Cincy and San Francisco. And that's more of a pretty much the previous 2 times before last year, since he made it, they played San Fran in the Super Bowl. So that's more of me just saying, you know what, maybe history is going to repeat itself. The my mind says this is going to be Eagles, and the law of averages says that Cincinnati has to lose to Kansas City at some point, right? Right?
They got a chip on their shoulder, and Burrow looks locked in. That team looks locked in.
Yeah.
They're playing good ball.
Final
And,
choice.
It is hard for
Final-
me to sit there and kind of. I'm not rooting for the Bengals because they're an AFC
Never.
team. I'll never do. You can't deny they're playing good ball right now.
Yes.
And do I want to see Kansas City back in the Super Bowl? No. I don't want to see an AFC North team that's not the Browns in there either. But if I had to pick, I'd probably go Philly and Cincinnati for the Super Bowl.
My final choice would be probably Philly and Kansas City. Like it's
Either way.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be the game is going to be sweet. Should be 2 good games a day.
I think Purdy can make it.
That is the thing that scares me, is that the slipper got to fall off on Cinderella at some point.
Who's been playing lights out?
It's been really, really well.
Relevant has been balling out of control.
Doing the number one thing a quarterback has to do, being pretty accurate and not turning the ball over. You get solid defense and a good run game, and all of a sudden you're winning games. It's amazing how that happens.
The Browns have their own problems, but I would hate to be was it John Lynch over there in San Francisco?
Mm-hmm.
He's got a little quarterback situation on his hands to go into next year, whatever happens.
They gave up.
They got a. That's an interesting situation to go into. They're gonna have to cut. They're gonna have to cut some people.
They gave up all them picks for Trey Lance to move up to get Trey Lance, and they may have found their due with the last pick in the damn draft this year.
It's crazy, bro. And they're still paying Jimmy G that crazy contract. It's like, I mean, obviously Jimmy G's going to be the odd man out first and foremost, but do you give Trey Lance the shot? He kind of deserves a shot. He got hurt early. You don't know if he's going to be that guy that you went after initially, but then you got Brock Purdy balling out like the way he is. If he goes and fucks around and wins the Super Bowl, bro,
it's a wrap. It's a wrap for Lance.
Sorry, Trey, gotta go. I doubt he's going to sit there and want to be a backup.
Nah,
but that's their problem, not ours. They don't wear brown and orange.
That's right.
So whiteout next week. We'll throw some other stuff in there. You guys got to tune in. So, but thank you again, Jack Duffin. Amazing. Go follow Jack Duffin on Twitter.
Absolutely. Like I said, there's a lot of garbage accounts on Twitter that's going to tell you a whole bunch of mess and gonna lie about salary cap and act like they know what they're talking about. This man knows what he's talking about.
He knows what he's talking about. He knows his stuff.
That's right. Only thing left I got to say is shout out to Believeland Media as always. Make sure you go follow Believeland. We still got that Joe Thomas helmet up too. Yeah, man, y'all better follow us.
They got a signed mini helmet of Joe Thomas. If you want a signed mini helmet of the GOAT, you better get on there. Go follow us. Tell your friends about it. Once we hit the 2,000 mark, it's over. Someone's getting that. I want that. Too bad I can't get it. But
man, I got a burner that I already signed. I'm following Believeland with it. Hopefully I can win it.
I'm about to go make an account just so I can get on it. Y'all better go get on that. Go to Believeland Media on Twitter. Follow them. Tell everybody else to follow them. Get in on that. That's a hell of a giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
That is a hell of a giveaway. And
That's
go
right.
follow us on go hit subscribe on the YouTube channel too, where you can watch the video of all of our shows and all the other Believe in Media shows. There's a lot to go. It's a lot. Go do it. You'll be happy you did.
Big shout out to all high school reporters too, killing the game. Killing the game. Oh, also, if anybody's trying to join Believeland Media, make sure you reach out as well. We will be at John Carroll University this Thursday for their job fair. Stop by and check us out in the booth. There'll be a few of us there. We had some snafus with timing and things like that, but I'll be there. I know that.
And if you're a local business listening out here in the Cleveland area and you want to be sponsored and you want us to shout you out on Believe in Media and all of our shows, slide in the DMs. We'll get you in touch and get you on board. We got some great sponsors on board already. If you want to join a team of them, give us a shout. Get your business out there.
That's
Be
right.
good for everybody.
That's right. Take that. Take that.
Take that. Clarence, you want to let the ladies know what it is, because it is time.
Yes. The adjective for Freddie this week is adventurous, because you got to be adventurous.
I feel like this is like Sesame Street with the letter of the day. I look forward to this part every show. What is
the word is? He's the adventurous Freddie Kitchen, because you got to be adventurous as hell to work on a game plan all week, run it for the first quarter, and then switch up shit to shit you never ran all week long. So, in the words of the adventurous Freddie Kitchens, if you don't wear brown and orange, you don't matter
at all. Peace.
Never. Peace.
Rowdies.